Welcome to WTPN, We the People Network. I'm Doug Molo, and I'm here with my co-host, Ed Dolezal. As always, what we share today is in our opinion and does not reflect the views of WTPN. We're very excited about today's show because we're going to talk about exposing what we believe is a nefarious deep state plan against we the people. And we have a very special guest today, as you can see. We want to welcome a true patriot and hero. As you know, a hero is someone who puts their personal safety and well-being secondary to the benefit of others. Well, our friend and our fellow podcaster just that day after day. Please welcome to WTPN the infamous Fearless Floyd. Welcome, Floyd. How are you?
Thank you, Doug, for inviting me to the show. I want to thank everybody for watching. And how you doing, Ed? Good to see you.
Thanks.
I'm just beaming. I'm so excited you're on our show. You're like my hero.
Oh, well. I did play him well for some reason.
No, I mean it because I was on your show. You're gracious, very gracious to have us on and help launch our platform. I'd like to go back and edit some of that. The first half I was out of my mind, but it was really nice of you to do that. And I really based a lot of what we do on the show on what you do, because we're not here to make friends necessarily. I mean, we are a common law educational platform. We want to teach and educate. Primarily, that's our goal, to teach and educate. But we do want to kind of call out things here and there that they're not right. And I know that I joke with you and say you're the great offender, but you're not somebody who holds back, and you tell it like it is. And it's not about the numbers for you or who likes you or doesn't like you. It's about the truth. And so we based our stuff on that, and we want to thank you for being a shining light in the darkness. So,
oh, well, you're welcome. Yeah, I take a lot of abuse. I have thick skin. It's been quite a ride to be. I was Fearless Floyd before I did this show. Before I decided to even name the show Fearless Floyd Show. And originally, this show was just supposed to be about me in the music industry and, talking to musicians, because I have a bunch of friends that are professional musicians that tour around the world. And I just posted, a couple things that I had done on the private side. They gained almost 100 times more viewers than my concert footage. So I just kept posting and gaining more traction. And I remember when I had 12 viewers, and I thought that was astonishing.
well, I thought the same when we had 20, so I get it.
Yeah.
But we're a little behind you. How long have you been doing this?
3 years now.
Wow, 3 years.
Yeah.
And you're like a machine. Sometimes I see you post stuff 2-3 times a day. I don't know how you do it.
It's probably my bipolar depression where I get real manic. I'll just crank stuff out. You came to my house, you would see all these different projects sitting around. I was doing some alterations Saturday. I was going to alter all my clothes. I just make a big pile of clothes, and then I'll bring them all out one day, and one day I'll knock them all out. Well, I was cleaning up the third floor and found a vacuum cleaner, and then I cleaned out under the stairs. I found 3 more vacuum cleaners. Yeah. And I'm like, holy crap, I got what, 5 vacuum cleaners? This is nuts. So I had those lined up. So I was out back actually cleaning those up, making sure that they all function, everything, because I'm going to go get rid of them. And that's when you texted me like, hey, we're on. I'm like, what? But I have all these little projects, so I get real manic and I'll just knock stuff out, and then I'll start stuff and won't have time to finish it, and it'll sit there for a week or 2 or 3 or a month before I can get back on it. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. So yeah, I'm pretty prolific when I do put out stuff. I will be doing a video later today. Let me go ahead and announce this for everybody while I'm here, if you don't mind.
No.
I'll be doing, and this is basically what we were going to cover today. And Doug didn't know at the time that I was having a discussion with multiple discussions with Ann LaFleur, specifically regarding the Michelle Moore interview with
Matthew
Jerome.
T. Yeah. I just call him Matthew T.
Matthew Tucciaroni.
The truth.
and about Mickey Clan, as well as all the current associates of Mickey Clan. And I'll just say scuttlebutt for lack of a better term. I don't want to use rumors. I'll just say scuttlebutt. Um, because I want to know the truth. I want to know who's really for the people and who's being puppeteered.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a lot of puppeteering going on in this community, because I discovered over the weekend, I can't tell you exactly when or who I was talking to, but what I was originally trying to do with my show um, about a year and a half ago, after I left the assemblies, and I said, I didn't really want the assembly, didn't want to be associated with them, but there were good people in those assemblies who really wanted to do the good thing, but they were being washed out, through the assembly people or through Anna or David Straight or through being scammed or whatever. Uh, those people. And what has happened is the whole community, from the Republican Party all the way over to everybody on the private side and everything in between, has now become this big spider web. And there's a lot of infiltrators in there being commandeered by puppeteers, master puppeters. And we don't know who those are. We don't know what the agenda is, but we know it's there, it exists. And we're trying to get down to the bottom of it to figure out what's what, who's who you should believe, who you should listen to. And like I always do, everything swear, tell truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God. Always do that on the Bible, so I'm coming from square footage.
Amen. Well, let me get us started here, because I don't want to get too far ahead of the game, but that's exactly what I got us together today. We want to do, like, this is really a special podcast to speak about the deep state plan. And predominantly, my pet peeve of this, it's a plan against we the people, to basically to eliminate our first right amendment to assemble. And I believe the deep state, in my opinion, has been using the old divide and conquer playbook by pushing their agenda to confuse people about our First Amendment right to assemble. And they're doing this by pushing their own assemblies through state nationals, tactical civics, and now, and open for discussion, Operation Restoration, because they've aligned themselves with tactical civics. And basically the ultimate goal of divide and conquer is simply to make different groups of people, right, disagree and fight with one another, so that they won't join together, unify against the true enemy, who in this case is the deep state. So this is definitely not a new tactic, but when it comes to the deep state, it makes complete sense that they've embraced this divide and conquer, because it's a mathematical concept that works. So I wanted to ask you guys, what you have to say about the whole divide and conquer strategy before we get kind of a little deeper into the confusion I'm having about Operation Restoration and our friend Miss Klon. Anybody?
Man,
Yeah.
so going back a few years now, obviously I did a lot of research. I'm kind of a research type guy. And I looked at different things. There's this postmaster general who supposedly captured the flag, and didn't sounded interesting, but didn't make an awful lot of sense. I couldn't figure out how that could be beneficial. And along the way, I heard presentations done by Mel K, and Vander Steel most recently. And, they're always moaning about the state of the country, but they never offered a solution. Contemporaneously with all of that, I spent an awful lot of time learning about common law and the jural assemblies, grand juries. And every time I was in front of these people listening to what they had to say, there was no proposal or suggestion in which direction to go. It just, a lot of foam was created, a lot of ire was stirred up, and there was nothing constructive there at all. So I learned about tactical civics and also learned that, for example, it's a top-down operation, when in fact, the whole idea behind a General Assembly is bottom up. So everything seemed to be in contradiction from what I had learned, and seemed to be part of the formula that had been restored in both Michigan and Alaska, which models we do copy. So, is there a lot of infiltration? Yeah, I personally witnessed that as well. Maybe not to the degree that Floyd has, but somebody came in from the outside and disrupted our meetings, and we had to shut it down. And then we had people that just wouldn't abide by a consensus process of the assembly. They wanted to run it and they wanted to be in charge. And I said, that's not my gig. I'm not into it. So this is not new. And I think as we progressed, because of the way that people's attitudes are right now, which is they're fed up. They're literally done. They've had it and are more willing than ever to move forward. So this podcast is very timely in order to encourage people to use their discernment, their ability to research, and to become familiar with what really is a bottom-up approach, because still there's so much money, so much control at stake that the obvious people are not willing to give that up. And they do that to serve a different master than we are. We are working in harmony with God and the dominion that he wants to reestablish. And I think that's part of our job, very definitely so, in order to bring back a cohesion and a mutual respect for one another that is so necessary at this point. So with that, I yield.
Well, yeah, I get it. There's been infiltration within the assemblies, but what I'm really pointing at here more, as Floyd, is that the word assembly has become a horror word. It's like horrible. And it's because people have been abused through these state national assemblies, now tactical civics and all this other stuff. So I believe that that's an operation to take the assembly out of the equation. And so people are just fed up with the assembly in any way, shape, or form. I know you are to some degree. And that's kind of what I was trying to bring to light.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, sir. I'm always talking to you.
Oh, well, I didn't know if you're talking to Ed.
No, I want to hear from you.
This is how I've always looked at it, and I go back to the old Republic of Texas. And of course, the Republic of Texas was around, before the assemblies, before they even, I don't even think there was a term assembly or General Assembly back in the late 90s, even in the mid 90s. But in the early 2000s, when I was in prison, I met a guy, and I can never remember his name. God bless me. I met him in the law library, and he handed me one of Glenn Fern Whittingham's documents. He also gave me the Dun and Bradstreet background business report for the state of Texas's, well, actually it's for the judiciary courts of the state of Texas, which are for-profit corporations and a subsidiary of the state of Texas, Inc. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Well, he wasn't in the Republic of Texas per se, but he was associating with some of the members, using some of their paperwork to fight traffic tickets. This is how he kind of got involved with Glenn. But anyway, he had an outstanding warrant in Fort Worth. The cops were trying to pull him over. He drove home at the speed limit, pulled in his garage, got out of his car. They all threw down on him. He jumped, went and got his gun, threw down on them. They got into a gunfight. He got shot twice, once in the face, once in, I think, the ankle. and is doing 75 years for attempted capital murder on a peace officer. Absolutely. Republic of Texas. So I'm hearing all this stuff about the Republic of Texas. There's an incident that happened in Waco as well. And then, of course, we know how David Lester Strait tried to infiltrate the Republic of Texas and take it over and monopolize and capitalize upon, the database that they had. So I've spoken to all the top of the Republic of Texas, and I told them they need to rebrand. You're not going to take over Texas, Colorado, New Mexico, Montana, all this old territory all the way up there. If you can't take care of the southern border right now in Texas, then there's no way you're going to take over, 5 different states. So much less Texas, the second largest state. So it's going to be interesting. And I tell you all this because when I mentioned the spider web earlier, how, the conservative MAGA patriots over there in Trump land, QAnon land, wherever, have now merged into the state national, and they've come together. And then you have all the people that want to get on the private side that are, kind of in that mix too. But now that the Trumps have taken over the Republican National Party, what is that going to look like? How are they going to address the rhino situation? Are they going to fund them for re-election? Or are they going to go fund their own candidates to go up against them in the primaries? Is it too late for the 2025 election? What's this going to look like on the political arena? Just because, we don't control anything. We've already lost our federal government. If you don't believe me, just go watch all these fucking Congress people waving the Ukraine flag on the House floor after they just laundered another, $100 billion, $60 billion to Ukraine. And I guarantee you it went into the pockets of those legislators in Congress. Absolutely. They're laundering money. That's the only reason they're sending it over. They're expecting World War III. I wouldn't be surprised. They have a better crystal ball than we do. And, I think they're just waiting for the collapse. They don't give a fuck anymore. They've sold us out. They're just looking out for their own interests. And we're toast. We're on our own. And they're doing everything they can to make sure that Trump and his Trump train of patriots don't get into office and, wield retribution upon all these Democrats and liberals and, people that we know have clearly, done some questionable things, I'll say, without going too far. And let your imagination run wild with all the accusations and rumors and scuttlebutt and bandied about upon all these spiritual things that they may or may not have been doing. So I'm watching that. I'm watching what they're doing to Trump because that's going to have effect on everything else. Now, these people that circle Trump, i.e., Michael Flynn, Juan O'Savin, all these other gurus, what is their agenda? I've met Juan O'Savin, I've talked to him. I really didn't have any questions for him because I didn't really believe that I would get an answer that I would be satisfied with. So I didn't even waste my time. Somebody else wanted me to ask them a question for them. And that's it. That's what I did. I asked one question for somebody else and I was satisfied with that. And I was sitting next to somebody else because we were the last ones to see him at 3:30 in the morning. And she sat there and talked to him for an hour. So I just listened to that conversation. And after hearing him and hearing everything else and, just being at that one event for the Chris Ericks's El Magador jacket signing in February in Plano at the Sky Pony Gallery. That's where I met Michael Propsman, -48. I met Chris, Eric's Baby Trump. Dallas was there, but I didn't meet him personally, but we, saw each other. He didn't know who I was, but I knew who he was. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody. I'm just like flower on the wall, just observing, checking everything out. And that's when Michael Propsman walked up to me and started doing the gematria for, that 5-hour tutorial I got. So I did that on purpose to go meet that crowd to kind of, because I'm listening to them on Rumble and YouTube and all the channels, and I'm listening to them pontificate and, push their agenda. And of course, they're all trying to make money and support themselves because this is costly if you do it every day. It does add up eventually. Time, money, energy, all the support you have to have. If you have to have a website, you got to pay for all that. It adds up, believe me. So what I try to do when I listen to these influencers, I'll call them, when they get real popular and they pop up, and I'll use Chris Hauser for an example because he's a perfect pawn. Chris Hauser popped up on the scene doing the 1099A process. So I watched a couple of his videos. I'm like, man, I already have this process. I got this process in prison, and I did it the year before, and I got it from Bill Pittman, and I tried it and it failed miserably. Just a month of total hell, believe me, because I did not pay my bills. I was expecting the 1099A to pay my bills. So for 3 months, none of my bills got paid. Not a dollar went out of this house. So 3-4 months later, I got to whip out, like about 10 grand, pay all my freaking bills. Yeah, that hurt. So when Chris pops up and he goes, oh yeah, you can go get cars. Here's a list of all these dealerships that do the cars. I'm like, man, who is this guy? Why is he popping up? So he started like October 17th, started his Telegram in like November and blew up. I mean, tens of thousands of people just clamoring all over, hey, what's what? I want a car. I want a car. I want a car. People were going to dealerships showing the Chris video. Here, just listen to what this guy's telling you to do, and he'll tell you how to
give me a car.
Yeah, to get you a car. And so I found Chris, called him up, had a 2.5 hour conversation with him, vetted him, totally figured out this guy went to prison and he learned all this information. So I went and studied who the hell is Chris Hauser. So I found out that he is a part of a group called the Knoxville Patriots, which they admitted in open court that they were sovereign citizens. And and that he paid one of those guys $6,500 to file UCC1 fraudulent liens against his then wife, now ex-wife, her attorney, and everybody associated with that case. So that made the headlines, even made the USA Today, definitely made the headlines in Tennessee because they filed against every state official, every county official all over the state, big time news. One of the co-defendants on a July 4th event ran his car through a crowd of people, 200 people. So yeah, it was just a big deal. And, Chris was kind of tied into it inadvertently, but he was in it. But during the trials, when he really came out, and Chris is the one who pushed the fucking sovereign citizen agenda, not the other guys. Yeah, that's what's so crazy. He was the one trying to use it as a defense strategy to get a change of venue. Yeah. So I'm reading his entire trial record. I read his Court of Criminal Appeals record. I watched the video that's on YouTube from the Court of Criminal Appeals website. Same thing with the Tennessee Supreme Court. I couldn't wait till that opinion came out. I already knew what it was going to say. And when it came out, I did a video on it. So I vet everybody. So some of these people, another one I'll use is Phil Godlewski. Okay. This guy blew up and he's like, oh yeah, I've got 453,682 people on the live right now. And I'm like, what? I go, that's fucking almost impossible. Pay-per-view, man, barely does that. You kidding me? So I'm listening to this guy And this stuff he's saying so outlandish. I'm like, man, how does anybody even listen to this guy? Follow him. This is nuts. So I go back and I start looking at the first video that they ever published on any social media platform, whether it's Rumble, YouTube, Odyssey, BitChute, doesn't matter. And I start going forward. I'll go in increments, I'll go a month, and then I'll go 6 months, and then I'll go to the year, and then 18 months. Are they still saying the same bullshit? Are they still saying the same outlandish stuff? What got them started into this? Did they just jump in like Chris Hauser, boom, 1099A? Or did they morph from doing like Frank 26? He lived in Hawaii and he was just, hey, this is Hawaii, these are the fish, this is the flora, the fauna, wah, 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 wah. Boom, started getting into the Iraqi dinar. Boom, now he's a actual licensed dinar retailer. So that's how he morphed into it because I wanted to figure out who he was. So I went back to his first video. Boom, he's wearing Hawaiian shirts and walking around Hawaii. Now he's wearing pimp suits and selling dinar. So you can see the evolution and you can see what his narrative is. So that's how I try to vet anybody and everybody I deal with. A lot of people, really don't understand how I roll. I'm always on a higher intellectual level vetting people than most people even realize, simply because I had to survive in prison and I had to live with some of the most cunning people ever. I mean, I've lived with one of Texas's most prolific serial killers. I lived with him. I worked with him. We were in the craft shop together. I owned one of his handmade clocks at one time. So when you're in prison, everybody's got an agenda. Everybody.
Well, I get I get the vetting, okay, but and going back to my original question, it was really, my issue is with these big organizations.
Define
organization. I know you have a pet peeve for State National and Anna and all this nonsense.
No, define big organization.
Well, well-funded organizations that are expanding exponentially, and Tactical Civics, State National. I believe these are specifically deep state operations to cloud the water about what the true assembly is for. And I asked you this question the other day. I said to you, if these organizations didn't exist, and where we are today, and I know you all know, the national website for State National, for the General Assemblies, if Destri's organization didn't have these other people to come in and infiltrate and cloud the waters, would we, the people, have already organized a majority of our states and seeing traction of setting up our county republics and our new republic? Would we be well on the way? Let me just ask you a yes or no question.
I would say if the state, and I'm using assembly not in the proper noun term, okay? I would say if a state assembly was autonomous and didn't have some mentor or hierarchy, that yes, it could organically grow into something substantial. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, the true assembly doesn't have a hierarchy. There is nobody. Everyone has one vote, and that's it. That's why it's been twisted and deranged. And so again, my question to both of you is this State National Tactical Civics a deep state operation to thwart the true First Amendment right to assemble?
So, well, you're talking about two different entities, State Nationals and then Tactical Civics.
Okay, well, I see them as both the same because they're both a hierarchy, so they fall outside of the traditional Founding Fathers assembly. They're both funded heavily, and money wants something. So that's my equation to say, I'm not going near it. If I have to follow somebody, or I have to pay to be involved, or somebody is going to hire somebody else to do work, or there's a hierarchy of, membership, and somebody's at the top, it's not an assembly. Okay, it's not a we the people assembly.
Right.
That's the completely, you know, quintessential element of knowing whether there's an assembly. Nobody's in charge and there's no money involved behind it. Okay, so I stay away from everything that's my litmus test. Okay, so
Right.
tactical civics on that level and state national are bringing people astray. You know that both organizations are doing different things, of course, but neither one of them are helping people to do what they want them to do, which is become sovereign and to stand up their government. So in my case, this is a organized opposition against we the people. You say,
I agree with that, but I cannot say for sure whether tactical civics or state nationals in general. I personally don't follow Scott McKay. I told you that earlier. I don't know much about him or the tactical civics thing. I remember when it popped up and it had no, when you first see it, it has no association with any person or entity. It's just tactical civics. You don't know.
oh, this is interesting because this is like a big kind of, I didn't know this. I had no idea who was funding tactical civics. Now, you just made a statement, Scott McKay. Are you
Huh?
saying that Scott McKay is financially behind tactical civics?
That's what I was told.
That's
I asked that
incredible.
question. I wanted to know. I go, who the hell's tactical civics?
Well,
You
you
know?
heard it here, folks, because that's news to me. Other than in back channels, we did
Yeah.
discuss this. But
I talked to hundreds of people. I can't remember who told me that, but I specifically reached out. Who the hell is tactical civics?
well, this
Well,
segues. This is
Scott
other,
McKay. I'm like, oh, okay.
aside from the discussion of whether these organizations are deep state organized, that's a whole nother discussion of what podcasters are promoting these things. And it kind of leads me into where I wanted to go next.
Could I just interject something,
Yeah,
please?
please, Ed, go ahead.
Um, as I hear this being presented, whether it's tactical civics, state national, etc.,
Hmm.
ultimately, the way I interpret this is that there is a top-down approach to what they're doing, which is counter to what the way it's supposed to be, as you just said a moment ago. But the key thing is there is a continuation of a denial, an interdiction of knowledge. They want to keep us dumb. They want us to remain dumb, right? And if I take a step back to what you were saying, Floyd, about Chris Hauser and a sovereign individual, it sounds to me like he might have invented, or they might have invented for him some verbiage that was not in keeping with common law. Because under common law, you, as a man or a woman, select the jurisdiction on the land in a de jure status, right? And you can, if you're yanked into an admiralty court of law, deny them, deny their position and tell them that they are in conflict with your individual position as a living man on the land. So what this is all about is to, in my opinion, is just to keep us dumb and stupid and controllable. Am I wrong?
Oh, that's been their agenda all along. Yeah, it starts at the schools.
What is civics? I don't know. I didn't learn what civics was in school.
Well,
Yeah.
the key challenge for us, I mean, this is going to keep on going. They're going to keep at it, as we will, which is to continue to educate we the people in the foundations of common law, the strength of common law, and in my opinion, the grand juries, the common law grand juries. That is probably the most effective tool that we have in our arsenal.
Now that I can go for a group of people getting together and selecting a grand jury of the people, by the people, for the people, and start holding court. I'm for that.
That's the most important element in our circle here. right?
Yeah, because how do you, I don't want to use that term. How do you impeach your government when your government steps outside the parameters of what you authorized it? Because, you know, we created the government. So how do we hold them accountable if they don't hold themselves accountable, which they're supposed to?
Floyd, that has been an issue for me from the very beginning, which is where's the teeth? How do we hold their feet to the fire ultimately? And what I have been told to accept as information, as knowledge, is that because of 1871, the creation of the corporation, we have no ability to alter, influence the direction of what they're doing. However, so with that being said, we have common law applicable to man and woman, and then we have maritime law, which is applicable to corporations. What they have been doing, as you well know, they have been impinging upon man and woman with their admiralty law, which is a violation. And that's where we must be educated in the knowledge of common law and how to use it on a defensive basis. To go on the attack against a corporation, we have been warned, I have been warned, that it would be a failing and a very dangerous strategy because they will retaliate. I'm not telling anything you don't know already. So we have to use what we know and the tools that we have for defensive purposes only. That's what I comprehend the situation as being.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.